what you were just mentioning was like, wanting to send your message out there, but just maybe there's a little apprehension or fear behind it. And that's usually due to our programming that we received growing up. Maybe grew up in a critical family where your parents had best intentions for you, but just might have been very critical and very protective of you. And I'm saying that in a way to kind of understand where they're coming from too. But the issue that comes up is whatever program we receive as a child will generally tend to follow us throughout life, and then we start internalizing the voice of our parents by, well, maybe I don't really have that strong of a message, or maybe I shouldn't put myself out there. And what can happen, and for years, even I can attest to this too, is you're holding back on what you can actually producing, and you're holding back by not sending a message out to the world, by not recording a message, by not letting the world hear what you have to say. And a lot of times this can hold us back. So for me, even with writing my first book, it took me a while to actually write it. I've been sitting on the idea for at least 4 or 5 years prior to it. Oh, I'm going to write a book. But then the voices of fear was popping up. Well, who's going to want to read the book? And are you really qualified to write this book? And these issues of self-doubt, because that's what it's called, self-doubt, in a sense, start doubting yourself. And then, one of the buzzwords that's been lately a lot was the whole idea of imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts rearing its head here too with, well, who am I to really say this message out? And everyone's going to hear my message and know that I don't know what I'm talking about. And it's a limiting belief. And so one of the things I just say is just take action and do it. And for me, I'm glad I wrote the book, because otherwise, again, it never would have been published if I didn't take action on it.
Do you have some sort of there's sometimes that saying of, oh, just take the first step. For example, just open the Word doc and start writing. Did you have that sort of moment of, okay, I'll shut out my thoughts, the voices in the back of my head, and just start doing it in some capacity?
I had to, because otherwise, again, it was just going to be a pipe dream for me, a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, someday I'm going to write the book. So I had to just take action. So because one of the statistics I heard, which was a huge wake up call, was that only 1% only 1 out of 100 people who say they want to write a book actually do it.
Wow.
And that was a wake up call for me, because otherwise I would have just been that easily. That was 99% where I'm going to write a book someday. And the reality is there's no such thing as someday in the calendar. Someday doesn't exist. So I had to pick a time to do it. And one thing that really helped me, which is, if anybody else is thinking of writing, one technique that really helped me was to not edit while I'm writing.
Interesting.
Because initially what I would do, there were times where I would be sitting in front of the computer with a blank page up, a blank document page up, and I would start writing, and then I would delete it, and then I would write again, and I would delete it, and it would be frustrating because nothing would be done, and I would be so upset with myself, and then I would give up. So one of the things and I learned this from a mentor of my, who published several books. Just write first, edit later. And that's what I did. And then I just started setting times in my calendar, time blocking my day, where I would spend 90 minutes to 120 minutes per day just writing. And for me, that helped out a great deal.
One of the things that fascinates me online is the when people speak about that sort of non-negotiables, like come whatever might come, I will still be doing this every single day. So was that time block something you were doing every day? Was it something you did during Monday through Friday? Did you do it on weekends? How did you approach
Yeah, I
that time
did it
block?
on especially on weekends when I really didn't have much to worry about.
Right, right. You had the mental clarity as well, the mental capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. Like I said, it was definitely definitely a non-negotiable for me, and that's what really I think helped me just move forward. Because otherwise, again, if I didn't set it out there, and one of the things that really helped me is to put it in my calendar. I
So it's
actually
physical,
put
it's
it
tangible.
physical calendar, writing, and I time blocked it where I said, okay, 90 minutes, just write. And after about 2 months of doing that, I had a manuscript.
Wow.
And uh, now with a full manuscript, there was no way I was going to delete that now. So I did a initial pass run through of what I needed to do as far as edits, and then I went to a professional editor. I went to someone else who didn't, or hired them, who had no knowledge of me, no connection to me, and I said, okay, have at it. And they did a series of edits. I mean, it was a deep dive, which is what obviously what I wanted them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent another couple of weeks incorporating their changes, and then I sent it back for another round with the same person. I had a polished manuscript, and then I said, I'm going to do a step further. I'm going to hire another editor as a second set of eyes. Really a third set of eyes to go over it, and they came up with some ideas and to expand on what the first editor did. So I did, took a couple of weeks, incorporated those changes, and then before you knew, I had polished manuscript, which I then went to got a cover designer, and then to a formatter, and next thing you know, I'm holding a proof copy from Amazon in my hand, which is absolutely the most surreal thing ever. To actually holding books, because I love books growing up, and I still do. I'm an avid reader, so it was kind of like a really surreal opportunity to be holding my own book in my hands.
Yeah, I imagine that feeling of that was something that was in your mind for so many years, but finally, physically, the final product was in your hands. It was something that existed in the world. It's probably an amazing feeling.
Absolutely.
One thing that I picked up while you were describing the iterative process with your editors, I'm quite interested to understand how it felt for you personally, going from, and please correct me if I understood it wrong, but going from, writing on your own to then passing that text or the text to the editors, and it was with the best of intentions. It was to really improve your work, but how did it feel to have someone new criticize your work or critique your work?
It was a bit scary at first to do that. And I'm like, what are they going to really say?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to, completely shoot it down? And which I knew was just really just being um, exaggerating. So for me, that was just a bit of a this is really happening now. This is
It's so
real.
real.
So when and it was kind of like there's no going back now. And so, but I was looking forward to it. I wanted them to, because I would much rather have an editor tear it apart than to have readers tearing it apart. I'd rather have an
Yeah.
editor do that So, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because a lot of the suggestions were really, really helpful.
The pros come in with the insider knowledge and can really take you to the next level.
Of course, and it was a bit, like I said, humbling to get the document back with a lot of red markup. Like, okay, this is wow. Okay, I got work to do, but that was good. I mean, that's, it wasn't cheap to hire an editor, so I was really getting what I paid for. So, and it was worth it because it really tightened up the manuscript and tightened up my writing.
Did it, like, I'm just thinking as well, was it, let's say, did you find any sort of unexpected challenges having let's say, a new collaborator working on the book alongside you?
Slightly, but it was, easily overcomable. Like, where what was challenging was, while the editor understood the basic background of a book and how the book should operate, it was a little, they didn't necessarily know my experience and my own approach. But it still really didn't matter because, like I said, they really gave a lot of great feedback.
Mm-hmm. You really saw that value in, okay, this person is not just criticizing for the sake of it. They really are working with me to get my vision on paper, quite literally, to get into the hands of readers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so that's quite an interesting experience because, thinking of like newsletters or blogs or podcasts, those things that are very much digital in nature, like you can just do it yourself nowadays.
Right.
And then, run those quick iterations with the public. But the book is something quite different. Like you you really put a lot more work up front before it even gets to the readers. So yeah, I'm quite happy that you've had that good experience because it, I imagine, could have quite as easily gone the wrong way with someone that was heavily critical of your work or would not express themselves in the best way possible and rub off on the comments. So really happy that you had that great experience with an editor.
Yes.
So I'm quite intrigued now, Albert. Going into the next book, what sort of lessons learned, let's say, do you take from the previous book onto this new writing experience?
Well, the one thing is just, I'm capable of doing it. That's
Right.
the probably the biggest takeaway is, like, this can be done. This is not something that is a good idea. I can actually do it. So it's not going to be easier, or I'm not going to be starting and stopping every 2 minutes. Now I just know to do it the next time. So I'm going to adopt the same approach, write and then self-edit later.
Mm-hmm.
And just write and self-edit later, and then have a professional really, be a good set of eyes rather than, again, just relying on myself.
So you're collaborating directly with editors, for example?
Well, I hired, there's a couple of editors that I know, like I probably used one of the editors at least that I used the last time to do it, in a sense, to look things over. I also have another one that I might consider as well.
It's out of curiosity, do you work as a sort of group, or do you work directly with the different editors?
Well, I was part of a self-publishing group with Mastermind, so I have a few contacts from that, and I use, like, that was the first time the first editor I did last time was a recommendation from that group. The next one I used a site called Upwork, which is for freelancers.
Right.
And I reached out to a couple of different editors, and there was one that really resonated with me, and That was the second one I went with. So I probably want to see if she's available the next time, or do the same process. Go through Upwork or one of the other freelancer sites and kind of see who's available.
Mm-hmm. That's really good because from the sounds of it, you maintained your, let's say, independence and your agility. Because again, I'm not a writer, so this is from an outsider's perspective. But uh, especially a few years back, it really seemed like the writing space was very much, let's say, static. Like the writers were very much dependent on the editors and the publishers. But from your experience, it seems that you were very much in control throughout the entire experience.
Yeah, and that was sort of even what helped me out along, was like without control that I would have been. And that, while that's really important, but it also helped me realize, like, I can make this happen, or I can't make, or I won't make this happen. No one else can really do that but me. And do I sit here another couple of years procrastinating, or do I take action?
It's really important because if you were to take the former option, a piece of your soul will be dying with it.
Of course, and I would eventually leave this world without a book, and I'd be regretting that.
Now that book is part of your legacy.
Right, and now the next goal is to write more and just really do a lot more stuff out there. So, but the important thing is to take action. And there's one of the lessons I've learned in business is kind of like take action first and then apologize later. So in this realm would be, let me deal, if I do get negative, because that was my biggest fear, was that I was going to have all these negative reviews. Hence the imposter syndrome was kicking in. And I was like, what's the worst case scenario? I'll get all negative reviews. I'll deal with that later. Let me do it now because I'll never know. And it worked out really well. So
good. Yeah, a lot of those voices sometimes are just, imagined voices in our head. And, I think it's Alex Hormozy who says this, that when you're in your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking about those voices. You're going to be thinking about the things you didn't do for yourself.
100%. I and that's totally agree. That's where regret comes from, not from the foolish things you've done. It's what you didn't do that's going to be the biggest source of regret, at the end. And that would have been the biggest regret for me, was I didn't publish the book. And
so looking a bit into the future now, you're on your next writing journey. You're writing about the, let's say, a very much on topic subject, so gaslighting.
yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, the title of the book is called Untwisting the Truth. And for me, the reason why this is a personal topic. For me, one of my previous business partnerships, there was a lot of gaslighting.
Right.
And I got out of that partnership. But it took me a while to do that, in a sense. So that's what kind of got me interested in this topic. And I said, this is going to be a great book because it's a problem that affects not just business people, but a lot of people. So that's sort of, what made me really be kind of motivated to write the book, because of the problem that I've experienced.
How is it going? So I've noticed that on some of your social media, you're also making a sort of, using the community as well. So it's not just about you telling stories, but
Right, because
making the people heard through your work.
yeah, I want well, the purpose of that again is I want to tell real stories. I want to help people get their story out there. Of course, I'm going to keep it anonymous and change the names and
Hmm.
identities, but I want to help the story being told. In a sense, that's the whole purpose of that, is to get my story out, get and not only get my story out there, but the stories of others and awareness.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable because it's not necessarily, again, it's even anonymized, so you don't even know who those people will be, but it's really a sort of waking call moment
Hmm.
because you read one of those stories in the book and say, oh, wait, this sounds familiar. And
Absolutely, and that's my purpose of the book was to educate, and I mean, and I'll be talking a lot about theory and work in there, but I want to again, I will also want a major component to be actually personal stories, so that by the end of the book, the reader completely knows what gaslighting is, and can recognize it and be able to help themselves out of it.
that's really good. And yeah, I know there's a lot of buzz on social media about toxicity and toxic environments, toxic people, etc. But ultimately, it's good that people can share those stories because, yeah, sometimes the biggest problem when you're in those situations is really realizing that you're in those situations. So reading the stories of other people can really help them um, do something for themselves.
Hmm. Absolutely.
All right, Albert, the conversation was great. Thank you very much. Where can people find you and
Sure.
support your work online or in bookstores?
Well, you can definitely find my first book, Rise Above the Script, on Amazon. I have it both. I have it in different formats: an ebook, a physical, a paperback, as well as audiobook. So you can, where all major audiobooks are sold. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram. My LinkedIn is just Albert Bramante, and my Instagram is at Dr. Al Bramante. I'd love to connect with you, and yeah, love to just continue having these conversations.
Awesome. Yeah, we really need more people like you who speak these stories and these ideas honestly and in extent as well, because not just a post and that's it.
Hmm.
You really dig deep into the ideas to really explain them and raise awareness for them.
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you very much, Albert. All your socials, your links to the book will be on the show description. And yeah, please let's stay in touch.
Okay, great. I would love that.
Perfect. Thank you very much and speak to you soon, Albert.
Speak to you soon. Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye.